Hey guys, I'm Saintvicious, and it's been a while since I've done one of these patch rundowns, so I figured I would hit you with one. We'll talk a little bit about some of the new champions. Actually, I'm not going to talk about Jin yet because I haven't really looked at his numbers that much, and I don't like talking about new champions until I actually see them in the game, so maybe I'll come back and talk about him later. Glancing at Shen from what I've seen, from the numbers and like how his rework worked, I think he'll probably end up being better as a support. And depending on his jungle clear, yeah, he actually might be a decent jungler. But I kind of doubt it on the jungle part. He probably clears the jungle too slow. But if he can trade with people in the top lane and scale into the late game, I think he'll be a really good top lane pick. But I probably see this being like a mostly support pick, just because of like the way they changed his W and made it to where you can pretty much make people invincible for like, I think it's like a half second or a second, something like that. But I think Shen will be pretty strong overall. I'll probably play a bunch of Shen games and then talk about him more at a later date, though. Dr. Mundo, they made his masochism. It does 20 less damage, or gives you 20 less bonus attack damage in the early ranks. So that's actually going to slow down his jungle clear a lot, and his also his early skirmishing. And then sadism also has a much longer cooldown in the early ranks, so you're not going to be able to just power farm the jungle and then just use your ult whenever it's on cooldown to just get full health. So I think these changes actually hit Mundo pretty hard, and I think in low elo, Mundo will still be the same champion and still be fine because people don't punish early game that hard. But in high elo, like I don't really see Mundo being played that much, just because his early game just seems like it'd be too weak now, and you just get bullied by a lot of the stronger junglers that are being played right now. Elise, they made her base human movement speed a little bit slower and her base spider movement speed a little bit slower. It's only 5 ms, so it's not like the end of the world. So I don't think that's that big of a change. And then volatile spider also does 15 less damage, which is also not that big of a deal. It's going to slow down her clear a little bit, and also her assassination burst is going to be a little bit lower. But I think that overall Elise will still be the same champion. Like, she's still top 2 jungles in the game, if not the best jungle in the game, just because of how good she is in the early game and her ability to dive, and also her ability to have like late game with objective control and being able to like flash cocoon and pick people off and things like that. So I think Elise is still really good, and this won't hurt her that much. Fiora, direction selection alternates between top right and bottom left side. So this is just kind of like tweaking the way that her passive generates. So sometimes when you're dueling Fiora, you'll just get you either get unlucky with your procs or you get super lucky, and that can change the way a lot of matchups are played. So if you have like a lot of vital procs that are close to where you are while you're in the lane phase, then you can actually make the lane really easy for Fiora. But if you don't have any vital procs close to you, then it can make the lane really hard. So I think this is just gonna like add some consistency to this. Gangplank ult, they added 20-second cooldown to it, which is good because Gangplank ult is probably the most broken thing about him. This with the other nerfs they gave him, I think will make him... He's still okay, but I don't think he's like, you have to play him or you have to ban him like he was before. So I think Gangplank is like... I think with this change, Gangplank's pretty close to being balanced, or he is balanced now. And I think that he'll probably not be... He won't show up in like competitive games all the time, but he'll still be using competitive every now and then. I still think he's okay though, but he's not like, oh my god, Gangplank's just the most broken thing ever. He's gonna beat everybody. So he's still okay though. Karma, they made her W cost less mana, but dude, nobody plays Karma. Get the fuck out of here. Nobody plays that crap. Alright, so khazix, they made it to where now you can jump, and then you can W while you're in midair, and what that will do, it'll buffer the W, so right before you land, you'll W the person. So this is not like the old khazix where you could just W midair and just like pick people off and max W, but now what this will do is this means that you can get a little bit of like a health burst if you're jumping in on somebody, or you can also guarantee that you're going to hit them with the slow as well in the W. And also you can do Void Assault, which is the ultimate, and you can buffer that midair too in case you want to like jump on somebody and just be stealth midair. Like let's say you jump in on a fight and it's not the fight you want to fight, like it turns out he has friends with him, you can already be stealth like right as you're hitting the ground. So this could actually save Khazix in some scenarios. But I still think Khazix has a really rough early and mid game. So it's kind of difficult for him. But if he gets going, he's still a really great champion. So I'm sure like Khazix mains will still be playing Khazix, but I don't think this changes much to his kit at all. Kindred, her Dance of Arrows now costs a little bit more mana. I mean, 5 more mana is like, I mean, yeah, you spam the ability a lot, but I don't think it's that bad. And I think it's better to go Talisman first on Kindred, so just because of the way that like the AoE works on her healing and like mana gen. So I think just if you go Talisman, like her early game will still be fine as far as like the mana cost. And then E, the Mounting Dread, they lowered the base damage on it by 20, which is it's like a decent nerf, but the real reason why that ability did so much damage was because of the percent health that came with it. So I think Kindred still be just as good as she was before. This didn't really change much on it. Like 20 damage off the E is pretty much all you're getting here, and that's like nothing, dude. Kindred does so much damage. 20 damage is going to be nothing for her. Nunu. Okay, so everybody's saying this is Nunu buffs, but anybody who like actually plays Nunu understands that this isn't even a buff. It actually is a nerf in some ways. All right, so put yourself in Nunu shoes, mid game, late game. It's really easy to get max CDR on Nunu just with the way everybody builds them. So let's say you have 6-second cooldown on your E, and you have 40% CDR or 45% if you chose to go into the whatever, which you probably won't. You'll end up with like, what is it? It'll be like a 3.5 second cooldown snowball or something like that. It'll be somewhere around those. And then if you have the 4-second cooldown, you get 40% CDR. Then it'll end up being like 2.4 seconds or 2.5 second cooldown or something along those lines. So you're basically getting around a 1 second buff to the ability on the cooldown that you would have before, which is, you're like, oh wow, like 1 second cooldown lower. That sounds great. But the problem with that is the slow duration only lasts 2 seconds instead of 3, so you have to keep that applied on them. And you have to remember also, everybody buys Swifties now too, so that 2-second slow duration is going to be lowered by the Swifties, so it's going to actually be pretty hard to keep somebody perma-slowed in that sense. And then the slow strength, it's pretty much the same. I mean, yeah, it's more at earlier ranks, which is really great, but most people max Snowball first, so that's not going to make that much of a difference. And then the reason why I say it's also a nerf is because the base damage on it got lowered by 35, so you're actually not really seeing a damage increase on the E or a slow increase on the E, because there's only that 1 second difference, and you're doing that at the cost of 30 base damage, 35 base damage, and also the slow duration. So I think these changes don't really do anything to Nunu, and I feel like, I don't know, whoever did these changes probably like doesn't even play Nunu or something like that. That's just how I feel, like, just looking at these changes. Like, if you actually played Nunu and like understood the champion, you'd like understand that these changes don't do anything to him. He's like the same. He's literally the exact same champion as he was before. So I don't know, man. I wish they would have like. I honestly don't think Nunu's that bad right now, but the problem is like everybody's buying Swifties, and Swifties just shit on Nunu. So as long as Swifties are good, you won't see that much Nunu coming into play. And also, if you need a good ADC on your team if you're gonna play Nunu. So like the only time I play Nunu is if I see like a LCS ADC on my team, and then I'll just camp his lane, and then we'll just snowball and like go from there. But yeah, Swifties just shit on Nunu too hard. These are some bug fixes to Poppy. Poppy's really great right now, by the way. Super strong. You should play it if you haven't played her. Top end support. They nerfed Rengar. Damage scaling is now 30% instead of 50, and the attack damage buff is now 20% bonus attack damage instead of 10% bonus attack damage. So I'm not really sure how that's going to affect his mid-late game. I mean, it is less damage overall, obviously, but yeah, I think so. That's just like a overall. That's like almost like, it's not an exact 10% nerf to Empower, because this is total attack damage and this is bonus attack damage, but this is a nerf to Q overall. And Bullet Strike now has a cast time of 0.25 seconds when Rengar casts it while midair, and Rengar will now properly throw his bola if you tried to do it midair, but the targeting cursor is out of range. I think this is kind of stupid that they added that cast time on bola, because if you see Rengar coming in and jumping, and you have like remotely good reaction speed, you can pretty much always flash it, or you can always like use your jump ability to get away from it. I mean, I guess this is kind of like retard proofing it, where it's just like, hey man, you get an extra quarter of a second where you have this full animation where you can see Rengar. And I don't know. I think it's like, yeah, it's gonna help like low elo people, but these changes pretty much like gut Rengar to the point where I don't think he's gonna be played at all anymore in high elo, which is kind of sad. And then on top of that, they also made throw the hunt exclamation range 200 range or longer, so you have even more time to prep yourself and be ready to jump or flash this ability. So I don't know. They pretty much just killed Rengar with these changes, and I don't know. I don't really like playing Rengar, but you know, it's like don't just like kill the champion like this, man. It's not good. All right, so Tahm Kench, they made the stack duration 5 seconds instead of 7, so I think that really hurts him as a support. If anybody was still playing him as support, just with the way the lane was played, it's hard to keep the stack duration up. And then even on top lane, it's like it's a lot harder, because before you just hit somebody with a Q and you had the 1 stack on them, and that gives you a 7-second window where you can kind of like do whatever you want to do, because if they try to trade with you, you know, you can get like an auto Q in there, or like maybe even 2 autos if you're running attack speed, and then you just get the free devour, and you'll probably win the trade off of that. So this is going to make it that window where you can do that a lot harder. So I think top lane and support Kench will be hurt a lot by that. And then okay, these are just bug fixes. And now your Abyssal Voyage gives you 2% less damage on your bonus health. So that's actually a pretty decent nerf too, especially in the early game. Like, it went from 4% to 2%. So I think Tahm Kench will still be, I want to say he'll still be okay in some situations, but these are actually pretty big nerfs to him. I think if your team needs a tank, you can still like pull him out, but I don't think that people are going to be just like outright blind picking him anymore like they are now, where they just pick it into anything. I think there'll be a little bit more counterplay to him now, but which like Tahm Kench deserved. He was pretty broken, so it's kind of good that they did that. Let's see, Frost Queen's Claim. They made the cooldown longer, which is good, and the ghosts no longer move slightly faster when they see the target, which is good, because people are getting Frost Queen's Claim on like top lane, like mid lane, support. Like half the damn team has the item, so it's just really obnoxious to have this thing going off every minute. And it's just too good for vision control, so I'm glad that they did nerf it, and I think this is a pretty justified nerf. Still a good item though. Morello, Namicon, and Athenes, Unholy Grail, they made the cost down on both of these items. So they're both cheaper. A lot of people weren't buying these items just because they were so expensive and they were running CDR blues. So I think people might not always do that build anymore where they do the CDR blues, and might squeeze like a Morello, Namicon, or Athenes or something like that in here. But just because the item's a little bit more reasonable now. It's like 150 gold cheaper here and 100 gold cheaper here, so I think people might be picking this item up in some cases. Like right now, the go-to builds for mid lane are like Abyssal, or actually I don't really see that many people going Death Cap. It's pretty much Abyssal. Like Abyssal's like the go-to item for mid laners right now, so this might actually you might be able to squeeze one of these items in here instead of Abyssal. Dark Seal, I made it a little bit cheaper so you can buy potions with it, or you can buy refillable potions. So maybe some people use this as a starting item. I'm not too familiar with the item because I never see it in solo queue, but I mean, if people were building this before, I'm sure because you can get potions with it now, it might actually be like a premier start, like that people might want to go. In Cull, it's 7 damage instead of 5, so that's a nice little buff, and the payout is 350 gold. I'm not 100% sure if people will get this item just because the lifesteal doesn't scale. I think in matchups where the person... Cull's just a bad item. Actually, some people might get it. The 350 gold payout's pretty decent, because it just about pays for the items itself at this point, and it does give 7 AD, so it's not like too much different from Doran's. Like Doran's has the lifesteal on it, and that's like the big seller on Doran's. maybe in some scenarios people get cull now, but before it was just like a garbage tier item. Just a bug fix to rapid fire cannon, wall collision detection, just some, I'm not even going to go into that. Assassin now does not increase your damage if you're in the jungle, but now it's 2%. So before, like, junglers would get the 1.5%, and that would apply to when they're killing jungle camps. And now, wait, increased damage is exclusive against champions. Oh, wait, what? Hold on, increased damage is exclusive against champions. They removed alone in the jungle. Increased damage and... So it doesn't... I'm like reading this. It's going a little hard on the champion isolation mechanic that Assassin was meant to promise, rather than being a very strong mastery pick for jungles. The way they word it, they make it sound like they hurt junglers with this, but then they say they removed alone in the jungle, which says increased damage is exclusive against champions. So that means that this 2% also applies to like when you're clearing jungle camps. So I think the way they worded this is wrong, isn't it? Doesn't that mean 2% applies to jungle camps too? So this would actually be a pretty decent mastery for junglers. Whatever, it's still only 2% damage, but yeah. I don't know. I can't tell because I feel like they worded this really poorly, so I can't really comment on this. But it's an okay mastery overall. Thunderlords went from 25 to 15, or went from 20-second flat cooldown to 25 to 15 based on level, and the stack decay period is 3 seconds instead of 5. So it's just going to make trading a little bit worse with this, but it's still pretty much the same ability. Like, they didn't change that much on it. Windspeaker's Blessing. Just a tooltip change, so that's not that big a deal. And then they changed the way that ward debris show up, just to like more see how long ago people warded, and where they warded. They want people using that information to like for putting pings and sweeping and all that nonsense. Scan detection, center to edge. They changed the oracle sweeping range. Okay, this is really good. They changed. Like, I was watching a lot of replays on, like, LCK and stuff, and when you put a Farsight ward down, it looks the exact same on the map as it does for a regular ward, so it can be kind of confusing sometimes. It's good that they changed this. Farsight totem also, your targeting curse will now turn green when you're over a bush and red when in terrain. So that just makes it easier to put the Farsight ward in the bush. Trinkets castable during channels. Nice, I guess. And then the new champ select, which is pretty much somebody forgot to ban or pick their champion, aka kicked out, is what the new champion select is. But I think dynamic Q is pretty good so far. I think that's pretty much it for this patch, though. Just a bunch of skins and stuff. So TLDR, they pretty much made these items a little bit better. This one got nerfed, still good. Tahm Kench, still situationally good. Rengar got gutted, sorta. Poppy, still great. Nunu, they didn't do anything to him. Kindred, still good. Khazix, not that big a change. Karma, nobody plays this shit. Gangplank, situationally still good. Fiora, still broken. Elise, still broken. Mundo, a lot more maintainable. Or a lot more... Maintainable is not the word. A lot easier to deal with his ass in the early game. Shan will probably be good as a top end support, and I don't know enough about Jhin, but I'm sure he'll be good. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.